Hi, this is Jill from the North Woods of the No Silicast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, February 15th, 2026, and this is show 1084. Well, Steve and Allison, they are in on their trip to Finland and Estonia, and they're already there and hopefully seeing lots of auroras. And so I'm hosting today. First up, we have an amazing clip from CES and a telescope I definitely want.
Steve and I are big fans of space. We're big fans of telescopes. We have a smart telescope at home, but when we saw this white telescope flying around, changing position, like I've never seen anything go with the slew rate that this has, we had to stop and talk to Suhail Alawi about whatever this is. Tell us the name of the product and the company.
Hi, thanks. Nice to meet you. So our company is called Vionis. So we invented this first smart telescope 10 years ago, which was called the Stellina, which it paved the way to a lot of other telescopes on the market right now. And with this new telescope, we are creating a new era for these kind of smart telescopes. And it's almost what we call a smart observatory. So it's an all-in-one system that we have co-engineered and co-produced with Canon. So it has a full optical system with Canon. And even the sensor is provided by them to provide the best crisp pictures of the night sky. And with this product, the idea is to provide something for institutions and for people in the outreach, like planetariums, observatories, people working on the sciences and etc. and for astronomy.
So I'm going to describe a couple of things here because this is also audio. What we're standing in front of is a white cylinder that's almost as tall as I am. And then another white cylinder that's rotating in elevation and azimuth. It's flipping or flying around.
So the first cylinder, it's the static one, the one that doesn't move. It's what we call the mount. So even in traditional astronomy, you always have a mount, which is the thing that will hold your telescope.
Sure.
And the other arm, what we call the arm that is moving everywhere and that's pointing the sky, it's the one it's included in the refractor. So inside you have all the optical system. As you can see, you have 7. Here, if you zoom in, you can see the 17 lenses stacked right there.
Wait, let me count them. 1, 2. Oh, okay.
Good luck. and behind these lenses, we have a camera. So this full frame camera will provide you a huge resolution of the things that you can get. And all the light that is gathered with all these lenses will provide you pictures of almost 50 megapixels resolution.
And how big is the aperture on this?
So it's 150. So in inches, it's something like...
let him do the
5.9.
5.9 inches.
0.9.
So, okay.
Yeah, so let's call it 6.
Okay. So now the way this works, you aren't ever looking through an optical
exactly.
reticle.
You have no eyepiece.
Right.
With these kind of products, we have no eyepiece because we provide it with we provide it with an app, and everything is controlled from the app. So all you have to do is you have a catalog of objects. So you point the object you want. So you click on it, and the telescope will recognize itself where it is and the places where you are placed. It will recognize the sky pattern and will know in which direction it has to go to find the object you want to point.
So I tell it I want to go to the Orion Nebula. Of course I do. And so I tell it to go there. And then does it do image stacking?
Exactly. It does the stacking automatically. So you can have what we call the live observation because it will stack images. The more time you give it, the best images you will get because you will gather more light, and which means that you will give more details to your image.
So it's not actually more light, is it? Is it because you're stacking? You're removing noise and
you're removing noise. You're removing all the aberrations, etc. So you will get better quality of pictures. And also with this kind of system, you can stack images overnight. So for example, if you stop a session tonight, and you will have a free slot of clear sky in 2 weeks or something, you can resume your observation. It will stack over what you have done 2 weeks ago.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
That's crazy, and we are the only company providing something like this. It's a feature that we have developed. It took us a lot of time to do this, but it's really a game changer because the more you stack, the better results you get, as you know, as we are a fan of astronomy. And it's the thing that allows us to get results like this.
So we're looking at an iPad right now with, I'm sorry, let us move the CS Innovation Award out of the way. Oh, darn, we have to point at that. Sorry. Oh my gosh, what is that we're looking at on the screen?
So here what you can see is the elephant trunk nebula. So if you zoom in, you can see the details here. You can see like the ear, you can see the trunk, you can see all the details here.
Oh my goodness.
So, and we can still zoom in, I think, to see even more details, and you can see some stars appearing beneath it, etc. So it's really cool. It's really impressive.
Gives you an idea of the resolution of the screen, right? Do you want to zoom in again, Steve? Did you see it?
Nice.
Wow.
And for people working on the outreach, etc., it's really a game changer because you don't focus on setup and you only focus on the outcome and the share of knowledge, because you spend less time like fixing things, adjusting details, etc. But you all you have here is the full wonder of space. So it's really easy, really intuitive, and really impressive by the results. So
yeah, I do find, at first I thought with our telescope, it's nothing near as cool as this, but with ours I thought, well, I'm not going to be looking through the optical, reticle. That isn't going to be like, I didn't really see it. But then when I got to see it grow as the images get stacked, it's an overwhelming feeling of like, I'm looking at that. I'm really, really looking at that. And you're capturing it, because it doesn't matter if you can't prove to somebody you saw it. So it's good to capture it.
Yeah, especially, and you can share it, especially. Our baseline in the company is share your universe. When you have something like this, you can see it on your iPad, but you can share it with people, like with mirrorcasting on a TV screen or on a scene or something like this. So you can share astronomy with people, and you can make it easy, because even if you have an eyepiece, you can see the same details, and you cannot get as much details as you can get with something like this. And even with the colors, etc., you can see like black and white pictures, but not with this kind of details on the true tone.
This is fantastic.
So one thing we've noticed is that we live in Los Angeles, so viewing is horrible. But with stacking, we can actually get some images out of this.
Exactly. So with the stacking, you can reduce the noise in the first place. And especially we have accessories like light pollution filters that you can place on your telescopes, and it remove all the light that is not necessary to add to your image. So it will remove it and will keep only like the light coming from the space, and not the light polluting your area, like with the external lights, street lights, etc. So that's really cool. So you can stargaze even from the city. So you don't need to be on the countryside to see something like this.
I think that's important because it makes it accessible to people who don't live in. People always say, "Oh, hey, there's this great meteor shower. Just get in a dark sky area." It's like, I live in LA. That's 3.5 hours from my house.
You need to schedule everything. You need to pack all your stuff and the heavy material, etc., to put it to drive there and to set everything in. You almost
more accessible, yeah.
And that's why we call it like, okay, forget the hassle and just enjoy your time and like focus on the wonder of the sky. So that's our mantra.
That's perfect. So one more time, the name of the telescope is?
So the telescope is called Hyperia. So it's the more advanced telescope in our range, but we have like telescopes that are accessible like for all the consumers. That the range is called Vespera. And they are already available on our website, and you can find it even in distributors over the US and everywhere.
Where's the website?
So it's Vionis.com. So
you're going to spell that for us?
So Vaonis.com.
That was a test. Yeah. Okay, good. He's got it, and we'll get it on his card. Okay. But this is fantastic.
So Vaonis.com. So,
very good. Anything that promotes science, we are all in. So thank you very much for your time.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Suhail.
Thank you. Our pleasure. Thank you for having me.
As you might have guessed, I do a lot of work with AI. It helps me with my podcast. It helps me write show notes. It helps me with websites. It helps me think out ideas I might have, be a devil's advocate. But I'm not a particularly good writer, so it's been very useful for that. But over the past year, I started wondering, how can I use AI in other parts of my life? Not for productivity, but for my health. Now, before I go any further, I want to be clear about this. You should not replace doctors. AI should not diagnose you. It should not make medical decisions. It is absolutely prone to make mistakes or have even biases about it. Instead, we're going to talk about how we can use AI as a health thinking partner and not as anything more. To give you a little bit of background, I lost 80 pounds over the last 18 months. largely with the help of GLP-1 medicines. Now I'm tapering off. And if you look at the data, many people who stop GLP-1s regain almost all of the weight. That terrifies me. So I asked a simple question of AI, of ChatGPT. Can you help me with this weight loss and help me maintain it? Now, most people who maintain weight loss track their food with an app. These apps are great. I even reviewed one earlier. My net calorie is among the best, but I found it mentally exhausting to track every food for the rest of my life. So instead, I started telling ChatGPT what I ate: breakfast, lunch, snacks, and dinner. It estimated the calories, protein, fiber, and fats. Not perfectly, but close enough to look for trends. And here's the important part of it: it spotted patterns. For example, one morning I told it I had had toast and 2 eggs. And it asked me, did you eat the toast before or after the eggs? Well, I ate it before the eggs. It's quicker to make toast than it is to make eggs. And it suggested at that point I might try eating the protein first to help stabilize my blood sugar. It's amazing. It's not a cure, but it's a small tweak of behavior that can help me maintain good blood sugar throughout the rest of the day. Importantly, I can even ask it questions over the last 30 days. Am I drifting? Are my calories creeping up? Is my protein stable? Is my fiber consistently low? And this is really where AI shines. Long patterns of behavior that I have that it's been noticing because I talk to it every day about my food. So it notices when I wobble a little bit, when I start eating a little bit more. Once it noticed I started eating nuts and maybe a little too many nuts. So it pointed out that while nuts are healthy, combined with the olive oil and the salmon I already had in the day, my fat intake was starting to dominate my calories. No judgment and no negative connotations in it. It just gave me the facts, gave me options. If you're going to have nuts as more of a part of your diet, let's start looking at the other fats you're having during the rest of the day, or perhaps you can just cut the amount of nuts you're eating down to a lower amount. It also helped me with exercise. I work out with a trainer on Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. On paper, I'm consistent. But when I asked AI to look at my exercise trends, it pointed out something I hadn't really saw in my own data as I was looking at it day to day. My weekends collapse. On Saturdays and Sundays, my steps drop, my exercise minutes drop, my entire structure of the day disappears. It even identified that I have fewer than 1,000 steps by 10 a.m. And that almost always just crushes the entire day if I'm that low in steps that late in the day. And again, not medical advice, but noticing behavioral patterns. The insight wasn't to, work harder. It didn't ridicule me. It didn't tell me to gut it up and just get exercising. The problem was my unstructured time. So now I protect my weekend mornings with small movement exercises so that I get them done with earlier and then not somehow miss it throughout the entire day. It starts me off with a good plan right away at the beginning so that my day starts out great. Where AI became unexpectedly valuable was in lab interpretations. After losing 80 pounds, my lab numbers were all over the place. I used to have high cholesterol, high fasting glucose, blood pressure issues, but now all of those have normalized. But I still get some fluctuations. And so, for example, a kidney number came back relatively high. AI pointed out that if a related marker were also elevated, it would suggest something more serious. But because that other marker was normal, dehydration was more likely the case. Told me to talk to my doctor, and the doctor had me retake that score after I felt a little bit more hydrated. I had just been camping before the first test, and it worked. There was no problem there. I was just dehydrated. It didn't diagnose the issue. It put it into context and gave me the idea that I should, perhaps talk to my doctor about it, which I did, and it was a great idea. Right before Christmas, my eye doctor said that my optic nerve was swollen and referred me to a retina specialist. I panicked. I was really nervous about it. It had all sorts of scary words in the diagnosis and the medical notes of it. And so I asked ChatGPT, what could be the cause of this? It listed some possibilities, but explained that diabetes can sometimes cause damage like this. Since I had elevated blood sugar for years, this is plausible. I went to my doctor, and it did 3 practical things for me. It helped me lower my emotions so I wasn't so nervous because it was making me really, really nervous. It told me then, secondly, what to expect at the retina appointment, what tests were going to be done, how long they would take. It even suggested that I bring AirPods because I might be a lot of waiting gaps and it might make me anxious. So if I had my AirPods along, I could listen to something that would keep me calm. This is not something that a search engine tells you. This was looking after my emotional state as much as the medical state that I was panicking about. The third thing it helped me with is it prepared a list of questions. One of them was whether or not the macula was involved. When I asked the retina specialist that question, he said, "That's a really great question." And I told him, ChatGPT told me to ask it. That moment was funny because the doctor laughed and I laughed, and he said, it was a really good question. I should have indicated that your macula is perfectly fine. The AI, again, helped me deal with my specialist a lot better. It made me a more informed patient. It calmed me down. And in the end, it turned out it was diabetic related disease and that it probably will resolve. So that whole incident ended up very well. But like I said, it made me a more informed patient. Now, this is where AI is going to get interesting, is that Apple, OpenAI, have teamed up with an integration idea for HealthKit. When you get involved, this kind of technology into HealthKit, that could mean some really incredible analysis. That means that we might have some sorts of trend analysis, steps, VO2 max, walking asymmetry, blood glucose, sleep quality, and exercise minutes. Now, keep in mind that this will be like every other type of health kit permissions. It will be opt-in, it will be read-only, it will be category-based permissions. Some of it will be very granular. It's the same security that Apple uses already. And earlier reports of people testing it suggest that this is going to be an isolated instance of ChatGPT and not tied to my broader conversations. So, for example, it's not reading my medical charts. It's also not going to remember I had an eye problem or I had a diabetes problem. It is just going to look at the statistics that are right there and help me analyze them. And then it can make some interesting observations. Your glucose trends are improving. You're getting more consistent with your exercise. And your weekend activity seems to drop about 40%. I'm just making things up. But you can see this kind of pattern analysis layered on with this data that all of HealthKit is bringing in from our Apple Watches to our exercise applications would be valuable for it. And because we know that Apple is going to enforce the permissions the way they do with everything else, it will remain inside of our control. And if ChatGPT, OpenAI, did anything except for what Apple expected them to do, there would be reputational loss, there would be embarrassment, and this integration would get removed immediately. And another consideration when you're looking at AI and health is ChatGPT is great. Conversational, supportive, explains things. It helps me, like I said, think a little bit better about what's going on. When I want a scientific citation, I use Perplexity. Or if it used a word I wasn't sure is accurate in ChatGPT, and have Perplexity explain it to me with footnotes and scientific documentations. If I want a more argumentative angle, I can try a different model. All AIs sort of have their own strengths and weaknesses. And again, we're trying to get clarity about what's going on with our health. A few years ago, I manually exported all my sleep data into Excel, looking for patterns. And I discovered I wake up every night at 3 a.m., and that was because the water softener was turning on. I noticed that on nights I go out with my friends, I don't sleep very well. It took me weeks of data dumping and analysis to figure this out. I'm hoping in the end that AI can help surface these kinds of insights, help me understand things more. And wouldn't it be amazing if ChatGPT could help us have those insights without all the amount of work I had to do? Right now, as it stands, when we go to the doctor, we get limited time, limited number of questions. We go home and we think of 5 more questions that we could have asked, is allowing us to get more information. It never gets tired of the follow-up questions. It doesn't charge per question, and it doesn't replace expertise of doctors. But what it allows me to do is prepare myself for that expertise. Great, I went home, I thought of 10 different questions about my eyeball. Now I can write it up in a concise note to my doctor and ask those questions through the electronic medical record. It prepared me so that I can actually get my thoughts together. So I'm not using AI to diagnose myself. What I'm using it to do is recognize patterns in my life, regulate panic when I have a health issue come up, prepare myself to have better questions, help me stabilize my eating, make sure that I'm not starting to trend off into more calories or less calories, get away from my protein goals, and help me keep this weight. The medication, like I said, helped me lose 80 pounds, but maintaining that loss is going to come down to me having the right habits and awareness. And if AI can help me stay consistent, then that is powerful right then and there. Not because that is going to replace medical advice or the medicine itself, but it can help me think better, help me look for places where I'm starting to leak back into my own life habits. And hopefully it'll help me keep those 80 pounds off. Bart Bouchatz. Hi, Bart. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, but you sound a bit funny, Allison. Oh, wait, you're not Allison.
No, I'm not, Allison.
Jill, thank you for stepping in for Allison while she's away enjoying the Northern Lights. I don't know if you've been following her missives from the field, but she saw Northern Lights. She's having a good time, so yay.
Oh, that's right. Well, where I come from, we see the Northern Lights quite a bit. I don't know if I imagine you get to see them too, so I'm glad she got to see them finally.
Yeah, they're seeing them and they're seeing them. So we're far enough south that we see the side of them. We don't get to see that curtain shape because we're not looking up into them. We're looking at them on the northern horizon. So what she's seeing is more dramatic than what we see.
For sure.
Okay, well, I'm here to talk to you about security. As much as I usually, when I think of you, I think of nature, I think of the universe around me, I think of photography. I don't usually think of security, but let's put that hat on my head. So I have 2 stories here following up on things myself and Allison have talked about in recent weeks and months. More timely reminders, really. So a big trend, well, not even a trend, something that's been true for years is that if you're downloading software and you don't get it from the true source, you're in for a world of pain because it's probably booby-trapped. So we also talked then a few weeks ago about this concept of residential proxies because they were being abused to hack people's Android TVs and set up basically botnets in their house. And Allison hadn't heard of these residential proxies, and we mentioned that one way they grow is with malware. Well, those 2 stories have just met each other. So there is a fake version of 7-Zip being put out there on lookalike websites, and it is enrolling people into these residential proxy networks. So there's a twofer. Be careful where your software comes from. A second double reminder. We have talked many times that the baddies are really focusing on browser extensions because they're quite powerful. And people tend to go, oh, I'll just install a browser extension. What harm can it do? I'm not downloading an app. It's just an extension. Only it sort of is an app. It's just an app in a browser. And then whatever is hype is what the baddies go after. And right now, that is, of course, AI. So be careful about installing browser plugins for AI things you've never heard of, because a fake AI Chrome extension has stolen 1,000 login credentials.
Yeah, I saw that. And what's interesting is they're both exactly kind of the same story, where you have known software that is spoofed by unknown software that looks very much like it, and you have to know where you're downloading what from.
Yeah. At least one nice thing us Mac users have is that if something hasn't come through the App Store and it isn't digitally signed, you will get a warning from your Mac making you jump through some hoops. It is still possible to hack yourself, but it gives you more opportunity to stop and think. And that's, a little speed bump is worth so much.
For sure.
Jumping on then to our action alerts, because we have no deep dives. Nothing came up that was worthy of a deep dive. So in terms of our action alerts then, patchy, patch is the summary here. Apple were first off the mark. The headline from the Sounds Institute is my favorite. Apple patches everything, February 2026. That does kind of sum it up. Right? So basically, the biggest ones are the Apple OS 26.3s. So iOS, Mac OS, all of the 26.3s. And there's very few features in them, but there are a lot of security updates and quite a few bug fixes. And given how buggy the 26s have been, both good.
Yeah. I'm excited about 26.4 because it sounds like it's going to have a lot in it. And I think people get unexcited about the 26.3s because, doesn't have that much in it. And those are the ones you have to do with the security.
Yeah. It's also quite small because it doesn't do very much. So it won't take you much effort. So it's a bonus, I guess. There is also lots more that they don't always do. So Apple also patched Sequoia and Sonoma to backport some of these security fixes. And they also backported iOS 18.7.5 along with the matching iPad version. And another reason you might want to apply all of these updates is because one of those is for a 0 day. So Apple did their usual phrasing for in very limited attacks, which is code word for this was used against high profile targets. But now that Apple have released the patch, the baddies aren't going to save this exploit for high profile targets. They're now going to use it against everyone because the cat is out of the bag. And so the exploit is no longer valuable. They're just going to cash in on it while they can. So patchy, patch. And then there were some really strange updates or unusual. So if you live in Australia and you have older iOS devices, you should patch because there's a fix that basically there was a bug in your iPhone that stopped you calling emergency services in some situations. That has been fixed in iOS 16.7.14 and it only seemed to affect iOS 16. So patch. Yeah. And then there's a few more strange ones. So Apple are releasing older Mac OSs 11.7, watchOS 10.2. And that's to do with the fact that those OSs are now so old that the digital certificates they use to make sure that software updates are real and not fake like those apps we talked about a minute ago, that digital certificate is expiring. So if Apple don't push out a new certificate signed with the old certificate, all of those Macs become unpatchable, even if Apple were to release an emergency update. Now, those are old enough that they're not going to get updates run in the mill, but nonetheless, you should patch because if Apple do release an emergency, you need to be able to get it.
Right. It seems to me that a lot of companies like to not do those kinds of things so that it defuncts their old devices and makes you go and buy a new device. And it's very admirable to have Apple go that far back and do this.
Yeah, there's a fine line there because even Microsoft, who are very much more like you described, they very much prefer people to upgrade. They do sometimes backport stuff to Windows 7 very occasionally when the entire internet is kind of at risk. When the vulnerability is so bad, it's a community service to the world.
Right.
And so, yeah. And actually, it's funny we mentioned Microsoft because they're our next story. So it has been Patch Tuesday. So patch. 58 flaws in total. Quite a small number for 2026. I know it's a big number, but it's a small number compared to some months it's in the hundreds. But 6 of them are 0 days. So, yes, it's not that many overall, but 6 of them are pretty serious. So, patch. If you are on Windows 10 and you didn't get a patch, then you are not subscribed to extended support and you are now missing critical fixes. You need to get yourself onto extended support either by opening your wallet or jumping through some of the other hoops that Microsoft have made available to you, or upgrade to Windows 11 or Linux, or just get off Windows 10. And then Microsoft are doing the same thing Apple are doing. They're also pushing out updates because they also have certificates that are expiring. But in this case, it's not software update certificates, it's secure boot certificates. And again, that's very important that when that secure boot certificate expires, you have the new one or you're going to have problems booting safely. And I'm not entirely sure because it depends on your motherboard. Your motherboard may or may not be happy to boot if the certificate doesn't validate. So you may actually find that particularly if you're working in a corporate environment where secure boot is mandated, this could break your machine if you don't get this certificate. So patch.
Yeah, I used secure boot when I was a system administrator, and it's an important feature in that.
Very important, especially if you have employees who travel, because the thing secure boot defends against is someone borrowing your laptop while you're away from your room or whatever and sticking some sort of nasty malware on it. So yeah, it's important that's there. Right, moving on to worthy warnings then. Apple users, pay attention. We are all being targeted at the moment in an active campaign going after us through, basically fake Apple billing emails. So it's a phishing scheme targeted against Apple users because Apple users tend to actually spend money on things. And so they tend to have their credit card associated with their account. So it's plausible to get an email from Apple saying, hey, we've just put through a transaction or whatever. But of course, that means the baddies try to fake these things. So what's happening is fake emails. I'm just going to read the quote here from Apple Insider. The phishing emails typically impersonate Apple billing or fraud teams and warn of a high-dollar Apple Pay purchase at a physical store. They often include a case ID, timestamp, technical sounding details, and they appear legitimate. The messages tell you to call the number right away or show up for an appointment to fix the problem. Now, the show up for an appointment is a bluff because most people aren't going to do that. They're going to go, oh, I can ring a number. And as Allison has told us 1,000,001 times, don't believe the phone number in the email. Use the phone number you find yourself independently because, of course, that is not Apple's actual phone number. Someone will answer and they will say they are Apple. They are not Apple.
Yep, that's right. I have seen those before. And what's funny is I'm more susceptible to the negative ones. So there's positive ones that say, oh, you won $200. Oh, that's a scam. But the negative ones, I'm like,
yeah, no one gives away money. No, it doesn't happen. Right. And that's how they work, right? They play the human because no matter how well patched your software is, we're still human. And our human firmware has known vulnerabilities. And our conscious tries to override our subconscious, but it's easy to make it to slip up. And fear, sense of urgency, anger is another great one. Greed is one that, like you say, we don't believe in greed anymore. That one doesn't seem to be very effective. But fear still works. Right. Windows users, you folks need to pay attention for a second now. There have been, if you pay attention on this show here, some issues with shortcut files or LNK files, or .lnk is their file extension. They can be abused in all sorts of interesting ways. They're obviously very useful, but like desktop shortcuts are great. But don't believe a shortcut you didn't create yourself, because at a fascinating presentation at a security conference, a security researcher demoed a whole bunch of new and interesting ways to make a shortcut do something it doesn't look like it should. So if you go right-click properties, it'll tell you it's opening a PDF, and a PDF will open, and also a bunch of malware will be executing because they found a way to hide extra information in various abused metadata fields. And the really annoying bit that always makes me cranky is that because the only way for this to work is for the user to interact with it, this is not something you can do remotely or whatever. According to a spreadsheet somewhere, this is not dangerous enough for Microsoft to patch it immediately. It doesn't meet the threshold for immediate remediation. This is what happens when you make something into a spreadsheet and you have rigid rules. You can't apply intelligence. This is so important that this kind of thing be patched. But no, it doesn't meet the spreadsheet, and it's not happening straight away. In about a year ago, there was a similar one that also didn't get patched, and then the whole internet went nuts, and then they patched it. So maybe. But for now, my advice is simple. If you didn't make the shortcut, don't believe it. Right. Notable news then. One of the things I like to do is to pay for things with my money rather than my privacy. So that's why I search with Kagi instead of Google, and that's why I use Lumo for my AI chatbot instead of the free stuff, which now has ads. Yay! But if you prefer voice rather than typing, you might be interested in a new offer from DuckDuckGo to have some privacy with your AI. They have just released a privacy-focused AI voice chat. So that's your thing. Check it out.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Yeah, I do a lot of AI work, and to know that you're private is amazing, because if you don't have one of them just selling your data or one of them scamming you, and like the $300 million scam that came before,
Yeah.
you want to make sure that your AI is private. So,
Yeah. And we tend to be very honest with the AI because it doesn't judge us. Some of them are extremely complimentary to everything we say, to the point that I detest those sugary sweet ones. So I don't use any of those. I tell all of mine to just get to the point, right? Tell me the answer. I don't want you to tell me the question was good. I know it was good. I said it. And to be honest, I don't even care if it was good. I want the answer. Just tell me the answer.
that's right.
Anyway.
I do use one of the sugary sweet ones, and I just went through this round of Dan Pink asking it very personal questions. Based on what do you know of me? What is my SWOT analysis? Strengths, weaknesses, threats, opportunities. Very personal stuff. And you're right. It is very personable, and it is very hard sometimes to get caught up in that. But if you're doing that too, and the data is being stolen, you're saying very personal things about you. Because my friend and I were talking about it, I said, is it secretly trying to figure out what my passcode is? Because it's my dog's name. Oh, what is your dog's name? Oh, it's Fritz, right? And now they know you probably answered a question as Fritz.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing, right? Because if you know it's private because you have a source you trust, that kind of thing like the SWOT analysis is so valuable. That is amazingly valuable and amazingly terrifying if it isn't. But AI swings and roundabouts, right? This is one of the things we've been saying for a long time. There is good and there is bad. And a lot of news stories like to cover the doom and the gloom, but Allison doesn't like these segments to be depressing. And I like to remind people it's not all doom, it's not all gloom. And so we have one of the good news stories. Claude Opus 4.6, it's only recently released, but one of the ways it was put to the test was to throw it at some open source code libraries and say, hey, find some vulnerabilities. Lo and behold, over 500 of them. So the whole world has become a little bit safer because Claude got to do a little test run on open source.
No, and you're right. And it's not gloom and doom if you prevent people from having the horrible thing happen to them. So it's great in this case that they're being proactive and looking for those things, particularly after the whole CloudBot thing. But to find those open source, use open source to actually for some good instead of creating something really hackable.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, the way I look at it, right, these AI companies have all profited massively from open source. Any of those coding models have been trained on open source code because it's open source. It's perfectly legal for them to do. And now, so you could argue they're making massive profit off of other people's work. And a lot of people say that's unethical. But this seems like a really nice way to pay it back to the community. It's like, yeah, we're benefiting from this open source, but hey, here is something for you folks. So I like it. And meanwhile, and I'm sure there's some AI hiding in here, as well as the fact that it's an AI protection tool, Microsoft have developed a scanner to look for backdoors in open weight large language models. So an open weight model is like that Chinese one or one, where they don't release the training data, they don't release any of that stuff, but they do make the model itself free. You can use it. Well, what is it doing behind your back? Because large language models are very, very opaque things. Well, Microsoft believe that this scanner will detect, if not every single possible backdoor, many, many types of backdoor, which is exactly what you want to be able to do if you take someone else's model.
Well, what I thought was interesting about that story is we're all pointing our AIs at each other. So I had YouTube's AI tell me something. So I asked ChatGPT, how valuable do you think that is? And then I go to Perplexity and say, is that right? And we're all just going to aim our AIs at each other until I don't know what happens. But it's nice of them to use that because you're right. That that situation that you mentioned is a particularly dangerous one, I think. And free, what's the old statement? If it's free, you're the one that's for sale.
Well, that isn't always true, right? Because if it's free and for profit, it depends. This is where we get back to my old maxim of follow the money. If it's not a charity and it's free, then there's something else going on. Either you're being gathered to add value to then sell you later, or you're being sold right now, or your privacy is being stolen. There's something going on, right? It's either free for now, creepy. There's something going on. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, which is why Wikipedia does not fall into this category. I get very cranky when people say, oh, if you tell us free stuff is bad, therefore Wikipedia is evil. It's like, no, that's not what I say. I'm a little more nuanced than that. And I'm also a donor to Wikipedia. So my Wikipedia cost me quite a bit of money, actually. But that's my choice.
Right. No, I agree with you on that. That's true.
Yeah, I gave him €500 this year. I was feeling very generous. Actually, no, there's a story behind that, but that's not for on air. That's not for on air. But no, they got 500 from me this year. They usually don't get nearly that much, but I don't know. It feels like a year for truth.
Oh, yeah. I do see them, every time you do go there, saying, we provide this, but it costs a lot of money to produce and please help us.
Yeah, and it's once a year for 1 month. It's 1 out of 12 months that notice is there. So you feel like it's always there, but it's actually only there a 12th of the year.
You're right. It does feel like it's always there. Maybe I just go that 1 month.
Yeah. I think you just remember when you see it, and when you don't see it, you don't think about it.
Yeah, probably true.
Yeah. Okay. That is it for notable news, which for the notable news segment is unusual in being short and having no bad news. There's 2 good features. Interesting insights then. There was this story which this maybe should have a fire extinguisher icon, because there is a lawsuit that has been filed that has not set up to any sort of legal process yet. So it's just a filed lawsuit, right? A monkey can file a lawsuit. And the lawsuit claims and contains no evidence of the fact that Meta have a backdoor into your encrypted messages. Well, the problem is there's no actual proof in that, and that's a very, very big claim to make. So if you're curious why you shouldn't fall for this so easily, I mean, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and we've got 0 evidence, so that ain't meeting the bar yet. Why not let someone who knows about cryptography explain why? So the link in the show notes is to a Cyber Insider post by a cryptography expert who basically breaks it down for people and says, this is why this is incredible. And the evidence provided is none. Might be true, but a lot of work to go to prove this to us.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of people, first of all, Claudebot sued in North Carolina for unpaid wages for users. So you're right. Anything could create a lawsuit. You're right. But secondly, I remember a long time Apple used to get this accusation, and it turned out that it was the cable providers and the cell providers that were spying on people and selling the data. And people said, well, all I did was type this on my iPhone. It's the only thing that knew I was going to go to Portugal. How did I start getting ads, or how did, about this? And it turned out it was the cable and cell providers, so you can sue someone and think it's them to blame. And then you find out it's entirely not true, or someone else is to blame that also has, your data.
Yeah. Or it's just an attempt to try extort money, because some companies just settle. Yeah, and this is why I have a rule on Let's Talk Apple. If it is a lawsuit being filed against Apple is not news. A judge in a courtroom saying a thing, or a judge filing a piece of paperwork that says a thing, that makes it into the news stories. Someone filing a court case, no. Yeah. Right. Believe it or not, that's it. So we get some palate cleansing. This has been a very light lift. Oh, well, Alison's away and she just has she would have had a completely stress-free Sunday, but like I say, she's having a great time. So, okay. I don't feel sorry for her. Jealous, not sorry.
Terribly jealous.
Right. I have 2 podcast recommendations that are sort of adjacently related to what we talk about on these shows or on other shows with Alison, and related, strangely enough, all to money. So there's a new podcast from former Planet Money hosts called Business History, which is a show about the history of business. That's their tagline. It's actually really good because so much of our life is the history of business, right? In the Western world, the history of the Western world is kind of the history of business to a large extent. And one episode that really drives home why I love this podcast is one that intersects with our interests perfectly. The title of the show is How a Bad Boss Kickstarted Silicon Valley. Have you ever wondered where Intel came from? This is that origin story. In fact, if you ever wondered why Silicon Valley is the center of the entire semiconductor industry, rather than why Silicon Valley, it was some orchards. And then it became the center of the high-tech universe. How? Why? Well, the answer is in this episode. And if you enjoy this episode, I would say subscribe to the show because it gives you an idea of their storytelling, and it's really good storytelling. So there you go. Business history, how a bad boss kickstarted Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I always kind of wondered that question because I was told because there's a lot of sand and silicone is on sand. And I'm like, I don't think that's true. But you put it on a fault line. You put the most valuable industry in the world and throw it on a fault line. That doesn't seem sustainable without water. Without water. That doesn't have a good supply of water.
Yeah, it's not a physical reason.
Yep.
It's down to the human beings.
Oh, boy.
Who were living there together, and basically brain. It's down to brains. That's where the brains were, and that's where the industry is. Right, and then the other one, so this is kind of a spin-off from Planet Money. Well, this other episode is actually Planet Money. Now, I've plugged Planet Money many times. It's an amazing podcast because, again, this planet turns on money. So it's not a show about money. It's a show with money as sort of the mechanism, but it's about everything and anything. And the title of this one, again, should speak to our listeners. How the Sewing Machine Got Us Software. And with my Apple News hat on, this one really resonated with me because, believe it or not, the reason that things are as they are is down to the weirdness of patents. And Singer helped fix a problem, and that same problem is what enabled software. And he did it 100 years before there was such a concept of software. And you will learn what FRAND is, which is a phrase I have said so many times on Let's Talk Apple over the years, because FRAND patents are a really big deal to make it possible to have things like 5G, which are standards that everyone uses, but they're also intellectual property. So how is that not a cartel? Well, all of that comes down to FRAND. And the way we learn about this is through the story of something else near and dear to our heart. The story of MPEG is the vehicle by which we learn the story of patent law, by which we get into by sewing machines. Again, a story woven together, very interesting and very much up our street. So that one really stood out to me as well.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Yeah, you're right. Planet Money is just the best in storytelling.
It's NPR at its finest, right? And then finally, even though she's not here and she's having a great time, Alison sent me a palate cleanser for the show notes. And in fact, Alison sort of redirected me a palate cleanser because actually this is a plug for the No Silicast away chat or Slack over at podfeed.com/Slack, because Alistair Jenks, who's myself, yourself, and Alistair take turns guest hosting when Alison's away. Thank you for taking this one, by the way. And Alistair is one of the biggest posters in the Delete Me channel on Slack, which is the channel Alison created for mindless stuff to just distract you. It's not important, and it's not going to spam the main feed, but it's usually funny, lighthearted bit of crack. And Alistair is the master of that channel. And he posted a YouTube video, which is of a British comedian whom I've been a big fan of for years. He's called Michael McIntyre. He's one of the most family-friendly comedians, because sometimes British comics like Billy Connolly are not quite family-friendly. Hilarious, but not family-friendly. Michael McIntyre is hilarious and completely family-friendly. And one of his old shows from, it must be a decade ago, maybe even more, is simply called I Know Your Password. It very much ties in with the stuff we talk about here in Security Bits. And short and funny, so link in the show notes.
Oh, that's great. That sounds fun too.
Yeah. Well, Jill, thank you for being Pretend Allison for Security Bits. It's so much nicer to have someone to talk to than to be recording into a microphone all by myself and hitting send. So, and also it's nice to see you again. You and I, we know each other, and yet we don't really get to spend that much time together. And I feel like I feel like I talk to you all the time, but actually you're just talking to me because I'm listening to your wonderful Buzz, Blossom and Squeak podcast.
And vice versa. I'm listening to you as well. So we're disconnected, but connected.
We're talking past each other, yeah. Okay, anyway, thank you, Jill.
I appreciate it. And we can't wait to hear from you next time on what's going on in this world.
Well, we all know what we should do until then. Stay patched so you stay secure.
Well, that's going to wrap us up for this week. Did you know that you can email Allison at podfeet.com anytime you like? And she'll probably even answer while she's looking at auroras on vacation. If you have questions, suggestions, you can send them on over to her. Remember, everything good starts at podfeet.com. You can follow her at Mastodon, podfeet.com/Mastodon. And if you want a list of the podcasts on YouTube, go to podfeet.com/YouTube. You can see all of Steve's amazing videos there. And if you want to join the conversation, you can join our Slack community, podfeet.com/Slack, where you can talk to me and all the other No Silicastaways. We have great conversations over there, chit-chatting and talking about technology and other things. You can also support the show at podfeet.com/Patreon. You can use a one-time donation at podfeet.com/donate. And if you'd rather do PayPal, she has that too. Where's that? I bet you're guessing right now. podfeet.com/PayPal. And if you want to join in on the fun of the live show, you're going to have to wait till February 22nd when Steve and Allison get back, and you will go to podfeet.com/live, Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and join the friendly and enthusiastic No Silicastaways like me. Thank you for listening and stay subscribed.